Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. So, when you think of biology, you probably think of huge lists of facts to memorize, right? Well, actually, scratch that. Think of it more like a giant, fascinating map of life. Every single organism on this planet, from those towering redwood trees down to the microscopic stuff we can't even see, has a specific address on this map. Today, we're going to unfold the whole thing and see exactly how biologists classify the wild world around us. Let's dive right in.
Okay, so here's our itinerary for today. First, we'll welcome you to the kingdoms. Then, we'll check out animals with backbones, followed by the amazing arthropods. Next, we'll look at fungi, microbes, and viruses, and finally, we'll go inside the plant kingdom.
Welcome to the kingdoms.
Right off the bat, we're looking at the most fundamental split in survival strategy on Earth. On the left side, you've got animal cells. They don't have cell walls and they don't have chloroplasts. What that means is their whole strategy is all about consumption, finding solid food, ingesting it, and digesting it internally. But on the right, plant cells are totally different. They have structural cell walls and those chloroplasts, which means they literally make their own food using nothing but sunlight. It's the ultimate divide, really, the eaters versus the makers.
Section 2. Animals with backbones. Let's start with a group that feels pretty close to home. A vertebrate is simply an animal that possesses a vertebral column, a spine. That one simple anatomical feature defines a massive chunk of the animals we see every single day. And yeah, that includes us. But having a spine definitely doesn't mean you all live the exact same way. In fact, vertebrates are divided into 5 distinct classes.
And comparing these 5 classes side by side shows you just how incredibly adaptable nature is. Like, take temperature control. Mammals and birds are warm-blooded, meaning they control their own internal heat, while reptiles, amphibians, and fish are cold-blooded. And their skin coverings? They match their lifestyles perfectly. Mammals use fur for insulation, birds rock feathers for flight, reptiles have scaly skin to lock in moisture, amphibians need to stay moist, and fish use overlapping scales. Even the way they reproduce, from live young to jelly eggs, varies wildly just to suit their specific environments.
Now, think of these specific features as a sort of biological checklist. This right here is what makes mammals, again including humans, totally unique. We have 4 limbs that are adapted for all kinds of movement. We've got hair or fur to protect us. We use a diaphragm to breathe. We have mammary glands to produce milk, and we give birth to fully formed young. When biologists see this exact combination of traits, boom, they instantly know exactly where that organism belongs on the map.
Section 3. The amazing arthropods.
So that begs a pretty important question. If the spine is such a game changer for mammals, birds, and fish, how on earth do you survive, let alone thrive, without one? How are you supposed to support your body and protect your internal organs?
Well, nature's totally ingenious workaround here is the exoskeleton, which is also known as a cuticle. Basically, it's a hard external skeleton that encloses the entire body. It gives all the support a spine would, but it also acts like an incredible built-in suit of armor. And what's absolutely fascinating is that this armor is waterproof. It is the ultimate survival tool for preventing water loss from the inside out. This specific feature is exactly why insects can survive and thrive even in super hot, dry climates where other animals would just dry right out.
And here is a magic number for you when you're trying to identify insects in this group: 3. Insect bodies are brilliantly, consistently segmented into exactly 3 distinct regions. You've got the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. So, if you're looking at something with an exoskeleton and those 3 specific body parts, you are definitely looking at an insect.
But here's the thing, arthropods aren't just insects. There are 4 distinct classes here, and counting legs and antennae is like an instant identification key. Insects have 3 pairs of jointed legs and 1 pair of antennae. Crustaceans, which can be marine or land-dwelling, rock jointed limbs on each segment and 2 pairs of antennae. Then you have myriapods, like centipedes. They have 1 pair of legs per segment. And the crazy part is, as they grow, they just keep adding extra segments.
Which brings us to the number 8. I really wanted to highlight this surprising bit of trivia because people get this wrong all the time. Arachnids, so we're talking spiders, scorpions, mites, ticks, they are entirely distinct from insects, specifically because they have 8 legs or 4 pairs of limbs. Plus, they have 0 antennae, and their bodies are divided into just 2 regions, not 3. So next time someone calls a spider a bug or an insect, you can confidently tell them why they belong to a completely different class on our map.
Section 4. Fungi, microbes, and viruses.
Okay, so first up in this microscopic and frankly kind of bizarre neighborhood is the fungi kingdom. Fungi, like the mushrooms in your yard, puffballs, mold on decaying food, or even single-celled yeasts, they are completely distinct from other organisms. Instead of normal regular cells, they're actually made up of these branching thread-like hyphae. These hyphae weave together to form a structure called a mycelium, which just has scattered nuclei floating around throughout the cytoplasm. Fungi use this wild structure to break down organic matter on the outside, and then they just absorb the nutrients right through their cell walls. They don't eat like animals, and they don't photosynthesize like plants. They are completely their own thing.
Now, when it comes to single-celled organisms, the master key for classifying them is looking at where the chromosomes actually live. In the prokaryote kingdom, which includes stuff like bacteria and blue-green algae, the chromosomes are not contained in a nucleus. They're just kind of hanging out. But in the Protoctists kingdom, like your classic amoeba, those single cells do have their chromosomes neatly enclosed within a proper nucleus. It sounds like a tiny microscopic difference, but biologically, it's a massive leap in complexity.
But wait, what happens when we stumble across something that doesn't fit into any of these kingdoms? What about things that, according to the strict biological rules we've laid out, aren't even technically alive?
Enter the ultimate biological rebels, viruses. Viruses aren't in any kingdom because, frankly, they don't play by the rules of living things. They have no nucleus, no cytoplasm, no cell organelles, no cell membrane. They don't eat, they don't breathe or respire, they don't excrete, and they don't grow. A virus is literally just a genetic blueprint, some RNA or DNA wrapped up in a protein coat. They are basically biological hackers. The only way they can reproduce is by sneaking inside the cells of actual living organisms and hijacking the whole system.
Section 5. Inside the Plant Kingdom.
Let's head back to familiar ground for a second. You might think all plants grow from seeds, right? Actually, not true at all. Take ferns, for example. Their stems, leaves, and roots look a lot like regular flowering plants, even though their stems are often totally underground. But the really crucial difference is how they reproduce. Ferns don't make seeds. Instead, they rely on single-celled spores, which burst out of these tiny little structures called sporangia on the underside of their leaves. They act as this really unique, ancient stepping stone in plant classification. Now, for the flowering plants that do make seeds, we divide them into two massive subclasses, monocotyledons and dicotyledons. And honestly, once you know this, it turns every garden into a fun little puzzle. Monocots have one embryonic leaf, long, narrow leaves with parallel veins, and their flower petals always show up in groups of 3. Dicots, on the other hand, have 2 embryonic leaves, broad leaves with a branching network of veins, and their flower parts are grouped in 5s. Literally, just by counting petals and checking out the leaf veins, you can instantly identify which massive subclass a plant belongs to. It makes identifying them so easy and a lot of fun.
Wow, we have covered so much ground today, from those warm-blooded mammals all the way to spore-dropping ferns and microscopic, rule-breaking viruses. Classification isn't just about memorizing a bunch of Latin names. It's about seeing the hidden order, the beautiful structure, and the absolutely incredible survival strategies that connect every single living thing. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. Now that you have the organized, curious eyes of a biologist, where will you look next in the world around you to find the next amazing exception to the rules? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.